Thanks for coming. Check. No.
There you go.
Here we go.
Hey, ready? Come on. How's that go? We are the champions. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. A lot of you came far and wide. I know. I'm not going to try to guess. I know we've got some Mulhall, we got some Tioga, Minot, South, North, East, and West. And we got Tammy Clark. And yeah. So, and thank you, Jill, for being here with the paper. And John Fieldo, I saw you here with the County Commish. We really appreciate that. This was last minute for a lot of you. Anybody else from the commission that came that I might have missed? We really appreciate Arlen. All right, good, cool. Thanks for being here, Arlen. And Isaiah's here running. Chris Olson's. And so anyway, I just really appreciate it. Crystal Hendrickson and I literally thought of this whole idea just because the data centers were getting to be such an issue, and we noticed it on a lot of our Facebook stuff that whenever something went out, can you hear? Is this okay?
That might be a battery issue.
Bad connection.
Am I good? I'll just
Batteries.
yell. Yeah.
I don't think I can yell.
You need this?
I might need a mic. I have no voice
Just
left.
eat
That might
it.
be a battery issue.
Eat it. Shoot.
Should I check it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the front desk, maybe there. I don't know. Anyway, and Crystal is kind of ahead of me on the data centers, but we were getting a lot of feedback on that one issue. We thought, well, let's just have a gathering and maybe a work group and just come up with some good questions and study it further. And then I remembered Tammy Clark and Kristen Megan, who helped us during the pandemic in the mask mandate fight and the vaccines and all that. If you remember, they were instrumental in that. And they've since then become friends of North Dakota. And and so I called Tammy. I said, Tammy, I know this is a long shot. And you know what? In God's game, he turns long shots into short runs. And Dan Hager's here. Thank you, Dan. He's recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, you might want to listen from out there. Hey guys, come on in. We got extra chairs. You might have to. If somebody wants to get Lauren a chair from.
Come on up front. There's a whole row.
He's a Lutheran. He's not going to sit up front.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, okay, so I'm going to introduce Tammy. Let's see. Get to the, man, there's too many apps. Okay, we're on YouTube. Yeah. And you know, she's got a long list of qualifications. She's an industrial hygienist, but she's worked for OSHA. And I can't even keep up with all of her qualifications. But the one important one is you're going to hear from Tammy. It's easy to hear from the developers of the data centers, and we need to hear all sides. But they're going to give it, maybe in my opinion, kind of the fox, given what the chicken coop is like, right? And so, because they benefit from it, but Tammy's not bought, and she's for liberty and a lot of the things that we here in North Dakota appreciate. And so she offered to come here. She's not charging at all. In fact, it didn't even come up. She said, I'm coming. And so God bless her for that too. And so if you can, there's no obligation, it's free will, but if you have a little extra, could you please, or a lot extra, write your checks right to Tammy Clark. And there's two spots, two buckets. I can see people are already putting some in there, and that's going to go right to her. And then the last thing is,
Usually when that happens, it's
Only put your name in here.
Did you find some
These are,
batteries?
I just ran to Target and got
Perfect.
these about half hour ago. Because if you, rather than trying to reconnect with, if we have another
Try this
gathering.
again.
Okay, thank you.
Because it'll help him.
Check, there we go. If we have another gathering related to this or similar to this, it'd be nice to be able to contact you directly. I'm not into using people's names and numbers for everything, but for people that I sense would be interested in another meeting or whatever, because we don't know where this is going to go with the data center stuff. It could turn into some legislation. It can turn into inviting you to come and give testimonies in Bismarck. It could just be another gathering. It could, maybe we bring Tammy back. I know Tara down in Oliver County, which was very interesting. I wish there was time to talk about that, but they might have her back again as well. So I'm passing around a sign up, just your name and your text. If you want to give your email, that's fine, but a name and a text. But please don't put your name on here if you'd rather not get more texts from me. It's not like it would happen very often, but you don't have to. This isn't a sign in for this meeting. This is a sign up for if you want further, if you want to be invited to future things. It's just easier to get the word out. Oh, yeah, you want to take a couple here if you want to please hand those around. Okay, are there any questions? Well, then I'll close my lips and please welcome Tammy Clark.
Thank you, Jeff. It's always great to be with you all. I think this is my third trip to North Dakota in 6 years. So when I got the call from Jeff, I was like, what are you guys dealing with now? What do you need? But I'm mainly here to support Jeff for his re-election campaign because I've worked with him for 6 years now, and I know his heart, I know his principles, I know that he stands for individual civil liberties, I know that he will fight against government tyrannical overreach that will violate your individual rights, and these are the kind of elected officials that we need and that you guys need to really fight for. Get out there, door knock, make the phone calls. You guys are coming down to the home stretch here, right? How many more days do you have? 4? Tuesday. So, help his campaign out. They really need a lot of help because they're getting opposition from those who don't necessarily really have your best interest in mind. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm very pro-freedom. And I'm very much willing to help candidates who are willing to serve selflessly and put your needs, the needs of their constituents, over their own. And so it's really important that we help to get him across the finish line. Hey, I flew up here from Florida. I think you can knock a few doors, make some phone calls, right? But it's very important because what we're watching across this country happen is really, really should concern us all enough to get activated. So that's why I'm here. And so I think it's a really good idea because this particular issue, the data center issue, is such a big issue right now across the whole country. Like every county, it seems, in every state, all across the country is dealing with this like sudden invasion of these hyperscale data centers. Like what in the world is happening here? And I only was informed about this about 6 months ago when one of my friends called me in from Michigan and she said, oh my gosh, they're planning on putting this giant 6,000 acre or something like that. It's enormous hyperscale data center right across from my family farm, and it's been in my family for 6 generations. And she's like, we won't be able to stay here if they do. And so she's like, I really need your help. Well, I've gotten very politically involved just because of my accidental activism work. When I got pulled into the COVID fight, that was not political for me. That was simply because of my profession. So because of that, I've become very involved now in the political space, just helping to kind of right the ship, hold the line. Whoa, what are we doing? Slow down. We're losing a lot of our individual liberties, health, medical, individual choices, things like that. I got really concerned because that's where I got pulled into this whole fight. So I know a lot of politicians. I've gotten to know people like Jeff all across the country. So when I got pulled into this fight and I started looking into this data center, I was like, what in the world? This is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. And so for those of you who don't know me, let me just introduce you to a little bit of my background. I am an industrial hygienist and an occupational and environmental health and safety professional. So what is all that? Most people have no idea about our profession until something goes wrong, and then it's call the safety person. Well, then we show up. Typically, we work behind the scenes. And so it's our job to anticipate, recognize, evaluate, and control hazards. So whether it's in your workplace, in an occupational setting, or it's an environmental hazard, a chemical spill, or it's an issue like a threat to the public at large, a pandemic outbreak, right? That's where we come in, and there's where we step in and we work with others in a multidisciplinary approach team, like virologists, like epidemiologists, like doctors, nurses, medical professionals. We work with other public health professionals as well in a collaborative way to deal with whatever hazard we're seeing that the public is exposed to. Whether it's occupational, we work with OSHA regulations to make sure people stay safe right on the job, or whether it's EPA to keep people healthy in the community by making sure that companies are following those environmental regulations, right? That we're not polluting our waterways and things like that. And so there's a lot of crossover. I even work with the DOT, and I have been credentialed through all of these agencies as an inspector, a trainer, all of that, an educator. And so there's a lot of crossover that happens. So people, have accused Kristen and I, when we got into this data center fight, of thinking we know everything about everything. Like, well, we do know a lot about a lot. Because I don't know everything about everything. I'll be the first one to say, when I don't know something about something, I don't talk about it, because I'm going to defer to the expert in that field. But what I do know, I know, and I will talk about it. And so if you think about, it's my job to anticipate, recognize, evaluate, and then control hazards. Any hazard in any situation, that's a lot. So there's 18 different disciplines in our career field. And everything from slips, trips, falls on the job in the workplace to noise. We're going to talk about noise with these data centers. Light, radiation, ergonomics, you name it. If it's a hazard to you, I'm trained on it. Okay, now think about how many things that covers. And that's why I'm saying when we got called about the data center issues, it was because our friend was very concerned about the light and the noise pollution that might affect her. And when we looked at it and where it was located, we thought, yeah, that's definitely going to affect you. Not to mention property values. That's like the economic conversation is a whole different conversation, right? But I'm looking at this from the perspective of educating people, just like we did all throughout COVID, about the things you were not being told. In fact, you were actually being lied to. You were being told things that were exactly the opposite of what we have always been trained to do. And that's why I stood up and became a government whistleblower in the first place, because when they started telling y'all to wear masks, suffocate your kids, do all these crazy things, stay away from each other, stay in your homes, shut the doors and windows, we're like, what? That is exactly the opposite of what you should be doing and what we do. And because we are government trained professionals, we knew they were lying. We knew they were lying because they trained us on the proper pandemic protocols that they are now violating. You can only imagine our minds in the first 2 weeks. What is happening? What is going on? And so that's where I got into this fight, and my relationship began with North Dakota to help you all to pass good legislation to protect you as citizens moving forward, that you could not be discriminated against for your own individual health and medical choices, be forced to follow mandates, things like that. So we barely got that done, but what was it, like 1 vote? 2? But we did. Got it done, got it across the finish line. That was not an easy one.
And this girl right here was
Tara.
Yeah.
I know.
Share the story about Tara. Yeah.
Well, Tara has been very instrumental in all of this, and it was Tara who made some phone calls and put some pressure on people that actually flipped a vote at the last minute.
And could I say something about that?
Yes.
So she said to one of the legislators who was on the other side, don't Minnesota my North Dakota. Is that how it was?
I said that.
That had an effect. So you don't think that going down to Bismarck and talking to legislators, let me be respectful.
Yeah. And I just shared something before this because, and I don't know if you've even had a chance to see this, because I was just like taking a load off for half an hour, just chilling before this meeting, because I've been all over the place the last couple days. But I want to encourage you, because I promise I'm going to get into the health aspects of data centers. Hang with me, because the backstory is really important of why I'm here. Some of you have no idea who I am. The backstory is important because of our relationship, my relationship with North Dakota. And the reason I'm here is to support this man in his campaign, because I know him and I've gotten to know him very well. Right before I came in here, I saw something, and I haven't been able to keep up with emails or social medias the last couple days because I've been running around with Tara all over North Dakota, talking and doing radio interviews and looking at your proposed sites and all of that kind of thing. And I saw something that it almost made me cry, because after spending the afternoon with Tara and Michael and, looking at what's coming, what they're proposing, it was a very heavy feeling, and the three of us talked about that, like, man, this is heavy, that what we are up against here, because we know what we're actually up against. It's just like with COVID, way bigger than what you would realize. And it has been in the works for many, many years. And so it's a little daunting to take that on. You feel like, I'm little David up against this massive thing that has been planned, and it's very much a planned collaboration and cooperative that's more like a monopoly, with very wealthy people running the whole show, right? So I was scrolling, and what I saw was so encouraging that I had to share it. And I actually mentioned my North Dakota friends, because after the last day, and we were feeling kind of heavy about things, Kevin O'Leary, you know that name?
Oh, yeah.
Kevin O'Leary. I have been tagging him in social media. I've been teasing him. I've been taunting him. I've been so ticked off at that guy for acting like a health and safety professional, talking about an environmental, like he's some sort of environmental professional. And he knows nothing, because I can tell by the things he says, kind of like what I dealt with yesterday. Just by the comments, you're exposing your ignorance, kind of thing. Well, the people have been so bold and have been so involved in standing up and speaking up and tagging him like what I'm doing on social media, trolling him and tagging him on social media, challenging him to a debate, because you are not listening to the people, and you are calling us anti-Americans for standing up for things that will harm us and our environment and our farmlands and our food sources. And because we're calling that out and we're concerned about that, we're somehow now anti-American and we're agents of China. I mean, that's what he's saying about people like me. So Kevin O'Leary just went on and did an interview and admitted that he royally screwed up. The Senate chair of the Senate in Utah requested that he reduce the footprint of his property by over 40%. So they are going from a 40,000 acre hyperscale data center, which is unbelievable and stupid, to a 10,000 acre. And I would not be surprised if he pulled out and completely abandoned it, because he admitted he screwed up, he got it wrong. The emails he sent, he had no idea about the blowback. He thought people would be so excited about his data center coming to their town. And he said, I admit I had no idea, I got it wrong, I really messed up. And the only reason that somebody like him is saying that is because of the pushback and because of the power of we the people. And so I just wanted to encourage you, when you get involved and you stand up, and you even if you don't have all the facts, which is probably why some of you are here in the room, you just don't know. You're hearing this from one side, you're hearing this from another side, and what's the facts, right? And so I'm going to give you all the facts, both sides. I'm going to just lay it out. It is what it is. Here's the facts. You take the information and decide for yourself what you would like to see, what you agree with, where you align, because I am not biased in this. I mean, I use technology. I use ChatGPT. I'm not against AI. I mean, I know that technology is going to be the downfall of our society. I do know that. But I also know we're not going to put it back in the box. So what do we do with that? right? So that's where I'm coming from, just to give you the information. But I just wanted to start off by encouraging some of you, because the more I see, being in Kansas, being in the Midwest, the heartland, being here, the more it's really coming together for me what is actually going on and the players involved and how long this has been planned out for probably close to 20 years. And there's so many big money players involved, and there's so many monopolies and co-ops and governments and government actors and politicians who are part of this, which is very corrupt, that it almost feels like, how do we stop it? And it feels overwhelming. And I have seen tears here. I had talked with somebody today that made me cry, looking at what's happening with this hyperscale data center in Oliver County. They're already starting on. They don't have approved permits, but you should have seen how many trucks were out there and how much dirt's being moved. This is what's happening. And so talking to people who live right there, and the tears, all of that, they're having to move, and the emotions associated with that. It makes me choke up, because what I look at, I'm not from here, and I'm not dealing with a data center right across the street from me yet. But what makes me tear up, and what made me really kind of quiet and thoughtful and choke up a little bit, is that this is my country, and this is my farmlands. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all Americans. We are all in this together right now. And that's why I got involved in this fight. And I didn't want to, because for me, this is COVID 2.0. And it was really tiring. Traveling around the country and testifying in court cases and in front of legislative bodies and speaking, not getting paid for it, losing money to do it, just because I love my country and I love my freedoms more than anything. That's why I felt I needed to stand up, and I needed to use my knowledge, my expertise, my credentials, and my experience in my career field to speak to this in a manner that most people can't. And I happen to own my own business, so nobody could tell me what I can and can't say. And I would tell people who would threaten me, like, you can't say that. I'm like, call HR. Hello. Very happy to talk to you. So I really did feel a sense of civic responsibility at that time, that, gosh, if people like us don't stand up and speak truth and provide the information to people that they're not getting, in fact, they're being lied to about, who's going to? So it felt like, to me, also a little bit like the parable of the talents. I'm a Christian. I don't know if everybody in this room is or not, doesn't matter. For me personally, I felt like if this was a little bit like the parable of the talents, that if I buried this, someday I'm going to have to answer to God for it. What did you do with what I gave you? I gave you that experience. I gave you those credentials, that knowledge, that wisdom, and you did nothing with it when you could have helped to stop it. And so I just felt like I have to do this. I have a civic responsibility, and I have a moral obligation, and I have a call on my life. And so obviously I knew I was born for such a time as this. I can't say no. I'll answer the call, Lord, because I just, that was very, very, very much weighing on me at that time. So I did. And I met Kristen on a radio program, and we live in the same area. I'm getting goosebumps. We live in the same area. We met on a radio program. We quickly connected because we both work in the same profession, and we were both saying the same things independently of each other, getting on every radio program we could, writing white papers, just trying to get the message out, going on social media and being censored. And then the Lord brought us together, and then we met you guys. And then we were drawn out here to help you. And then from there, it just launched us into a whole different sphere, where now when this happened, all of a sudden we started getting contacted by people. And I actually called Kristen, and I was like, buckle up, Buttercup, here we go again. Wow, are you in for this? So that, I want you to understand my background, I want you to understand my profession, and I want you to understand my heart, where I'm coming from. I am not getting paid to say this, and nor do I ask to get paid to say this, because I think somehow that would discredit the message. When I say follow the money, if I'm taking money to say what I'm saying, how can I say that? But it is all about the money. Follow those who are getting paid. They're the ones that are extremely corrupt and do not care about you, your health, your community, your farmlands. They don't, because they're getting millions. And we've uncovered it through FOIAs. I've actually been part of recalls where we've recalled every single member of boards that have been part of backroom deals that sign NDAs and that were taking millions and sold out their communities for their millions. We recalled the entire board. I've been involved in that all over the country, actually. The city of Festus, Missouri, recalled their entire board. It can be done, and people are getting to the point that they're fed up with their elected representatives not listening to them, and that's why I love this guy, because he's never going to do that to you. He's never going to put you in the position where he won't listen to you. He might not always agree with everything every constituent has to say. That's okay. But he understands whose seat he is sitting in, yours. And so he will always listen to you. And so I will do whatever I can to help good representatives and senators like that hold the line. They're the only ones holding the line for us right now. When you've got other elected representatives like Julie, what's her name? Julie Fedorchak. Don't even get me started. And I have nothing against her personally. I do not know her personally. But after learning what she has done, what she is involved in, and the committees she sits on, the activities she has done behind the scenes with her own properties, and then what she's gotten involved in, I actually told the gentleman who was driving me around today, and I was looking at everything, because I've read about this. I knew about what she had done. I read it, I looked into it myself like several days ago. I actually said to him, do you realize that is the equivalent in real estate, in the real estate world, that is the equivalent to insider trading in stock world, what she's done. Yeah. Totally corrupt, totally out for her own self, positioning herself to be able to continue her own nefarious, corrupt activities. I'm sorry, but that's why we're in the state we're in today, because we're not stopping that. So when we the people see that kind of activity, we've got to get involved. We've got to call it out, and we've got to stop it. How do you stop it? By your vote. By getting other people involved, running for office, okay? So there's my spiel. That's who I am. That's where I come from. That's why I'm here. Now let me talk about data centers. Okay, so first of all, it's very important to understand the data centers, whatever you want to call them, same thing. They are not the same thing as another industrial type facility. Okay, they are so different, and they create such unique hazards because of their size and because of their systems that other industrial facilities do not create. They do not expose the community to the types of harms that these particular facilities do. And that's why I'm very concerned, because nobody is addressing that. But what we're seeing all over the country is people are experiencing it. Oh, too late. You're now experiencing these harms. Nobody told you about this, and now you've all got buyer's remorse because people are getting sick, their wells are running dry, their utility bills are skyrocketing from like $200 a month to $800 a month. Your utility companies are completely abandoning you in favor of servicing a data center. Now what are you gonna do? I mean, this is happening all over the country. And so that's where I'm coming from with this. So what are the concerns? Number one, these types of facilities, well, first of all, I should preface it with this. Like I said, I'm not against technology. I am not against progress. I'm not even against AI. I think we need to be very careful, and we need to control it. We need to manage it. We need global safeguards in place. There has to be regulations with it. And we're not doing that. We're not managing that. We've just flown open the floodgates and said, it's a mad dash. Everyone out there, get a data center. You know, like, I feel like it's the popular thing to do now. You get a data center. You get a data center. I want a data center. That's how our boards are acting, because that's kind of the approach to this, because right now the Trump administration is pushing this and spearheading this, and it's all under the name of winning the AI race. Okay, what race? There's not a race we need to win right now. We're winning it. We're already winning it. China doesn't innovate anything. All they do is copy everything we do. They have a total surveillance state, okay? They only have about 400 data centers, and yet they control every aspect of every citizen's life. Every citizen is on digital currency. All their health information is digitized and tied to their bank account. They have a social credit scoring system, and if they do not go along, then they get in trouble. In fact, I forget who it was, one of the team that went with President Trump to China. His taxi driver parked like a little bit outside of where the boundaries which he's allowed to drive around in, smart cities. That's a real thing. He parked outside of that just a little bit, and within 4 minutes, a ticket showed up. In his phone, he was notified that he had a ticket, and they just automatically deducted the funds from his bank account. They have a total surveillance state. Young people over there, they have one of the highest homeless populations in the country because young people are very unsettled over there. There's a lot of unrest, as you can imagine. And so if they say anything at all, their bank accounts are cut off. They have no access to food. They can't pay their rents. They're homeless. They have homeless young people dying on the streets because they dare to say something against the government and they're completely cut off from their funds. Okay, that is a total government surveillance state and a social credit scoring system. That is how they control every aspect and every movement of your life. So China has about 400 data centers, and they have that much computational power. What are we doing that we think we need to build 4,000 more? Oh, by the way, their data centers are not all hyperscale. So now, what is this about? The problem as an environmental health specialist that I see, knowing the cause and effect of systems, designs, and hazardous exposures, this is where my colleagues and I have blown the whistle and said, what they're proposing is going to create sickness and harm in both human and animal populations, and it is going to completely destroy our agricultural farmlands in this country, and it is going to suck the wells and the aquifers dry. It really will. And when people say that's very alarmist and that's doom and gloom, I'm like, well, I was one of the first people in East Palestine, Ohio, after the train derailment, and I said then, watching what they were doing, was very improper. The way they were testing, improper testing media, improper sampling techniques. You don't get what you don't test for. And the EPA was intentionally sampling improperly. They should have rehomed that whole community. They did not do that, and they should have. And so we said, we are going to see cancer clusters here. We are going to see neurological disorders and diseases here. We're going to see birth defects here because there were over 40 chemicals that combined in that explosion, in that uncontrolled controlled burn. And then it was released into that town only a few football fields away from the entire downtown. And all of those things that combine, those chemicals that combined created worse chemicals, phosgenes, dioxins. A very small amount of that will create cancer very quickly. And they did not protect those people. They did not tell them how to shelter in place. And so Kristen and I knew they have all been exposed. And after we left, we were just sick about it and said, we're going to see this here. And you know what? They have massive cancer clusters there. They're dealing with severe birth defects, statistically off the charts. They're dealing with neurological disorders and diseases. Young children, their dogs died within a week. Their chickens died within a week. And so when I tell you, this is what I see, we have to use predictive modeling in our profession, and we apply that to what we know, cause and effect, root cause. We do a lot of root cause analysis. We can predict through predictive modeling what's going to happen through the exposure. And so it's very sad to me because when I see what's coming, I'm telling you, it's been very hard for me to process it because I know if they do what they're proposing to do, we are all in very big trouble in America. Now, Larry Fink of BlackRock is calling this the new, I actually heard him say this in a World Economic Forum symposium. He said, what we are creating right now is the new economic revolution. And that has to do with transmission lines that tie into substations, that tie into data centers, that do not store data or collect or produce data, they store data. And so all of us are sitting here wondering, why do we need all these hyperscale data centers? What's the ROI? What do we get out of it? There's nothing we get out of that. We don't need to beat China in the AI race. Let them do their thing, they're already doing it. That doesn't hurt us, right? We have enough computational power. And what we're seeing here, the demand for this level is not being driven by an organic need for more computational output. It just isn't. We don't need it. So what's really going on here? And what are we gonna start dealing with? So you guys who are in the room here that are board members, whether you're on a local planning or zoning board, city, township, county commission, state legislators, you really need to understand this. These companies right now are being driven by their contracts. And the sunset is almost here for them to get their permits approved, to get that tax ROI upfront, that tax benefit upfront. That's why they're rushing this. That's why they're pushing this. They have contracts, OpenAI, Oracle, Microsoft, all of these big tech companies are working together. They're kind of like a distributor works with a grocery store, and then the consumer at the bottom, like you're all in that same chain and play a different role, even though sometimes they're competitors. They have contracts that they need to satisfy within a certain amount of time, and if they don't, the fines and the fees are in the billions. And they right now, if they get the permits approved by a certain date, the end of July, I don't even know what exact date it is, then they can take advantage of that tax incentive upfront. So they're betting on, and they're investing billions, convincing their investors because they're gonna make their money upfront. They know this is all a game. They know that they're not gonna be using these hyperscale data centers for much longer because we already have newer technology out there. We have fractal, we have edge computing, quantum computing, and it's much smaller. Something the size of a dining room table can produce what a hyperscale data center can produce. We don't need it. That's a fact. I have talked with these companies. They've asked me to speak for them. I met with a data center developer last night. He came to hear me speak. I was like, oh, he introduced himself as a landman for a data center, and I went, oh boy, how's this conversation gonna go? Do I need security? But he turned out to be somebody who's developing a data center the way data centers have been developed for decades around here in this country. Not using water, they don't need to. Very small footprint, using alternative cooling systems, not creating noise because it's immersion cooling, so there's no HVAC or fans created. We can do that, we have the technology. And so he was asking me, how everybody's demonizing me, lumping me in with all this. I said, no, you're the guy doing it right. That's why when I give my presentations, I always say, we don't need to access the community water supply. We don't need to access the aquifers, the rivers, and the lakes. They shouldn't be using a drop of water because the technology is out there. They don't need to. Make them use alternative cooling systems or don't allow them, right? So that was just one thing. And for the other thing, the types of computational technology that we have, it is ridiculous for anyone to tell you that they need 600 acres for a data center. So you know what I was asking him, so how many acres are you building your data center on? He said 10. He goes, do you have a problem with that? And I go, no, you're the guy doing it right. You're the one, like data centers, for those of you who don't understand anything about data centers, they exist to service banks, financial institutions, hospital systems, medical systems. Those types of data centers have a few server racks, they've got a few servers. They do not create so much heat that it creates a problem. They can easily air cool them, not a problem. It's not creating an environmental hazard. It's not creating a public health hazard. What we're doing now, the way we're doing it, is not only going to create a hazard for those people and animals, livestock, and the environment around that individual hyperscale data center, but they're proposing them one here, and I want one here, and I want one here, all along where they can tie into transmission lines, tie into substations that they're expanding like crazy, and tie into the lines that more lines there. I saw today on a site map where there are more lines, transmission lines being planned coming in here. I don't know if you know that or not, and more gas lines. And they're going to put these data centers all along them. So they're kind of pocketing in these towns. That's where Kristen and I really got concerned because we said it's not one standalone. It is the cumulative exposure from multiple sites all around your communities that create that synergistic toxicity, because now you're getting EMF, that electromagnetic frequency, and EL, extremely low frequency. You're getting that from the transmission lines already. By the way, that's affecting our pollinators. When I was out in Kansas, just the overhead transmission lines that they had put in, she said, I went to a ranch out in Kansas and she said, all my bees have left. Well, right across the street, massive transmission lines went in the property right across her. For miles they ran, but you could stand in her front yard and see them across the street. And she said, I think it might have something to do with those lines. And I said, I can tell you, I can promise you it has something to do with those lines because they're so massive. I said, there is tonal noise coming off of that and EMF and EL coming off of that. And she said, we even put in a new queen, 2 queens left. She says, I can't keep my bees. Okay, when you're in states like Kansas and North Dakota, in the agricultural areas, that's a problem. If we don't have pollinators, we don't have food. So there's already a problem with the transmission lines, with the substations, and now you go and you put in a bunch of data centers all around it, and you're going to have massive exposures to that EMF and that EL, that extremely low frequency combined. And it's a cumulative exposure that creates toxic synergistic problems, biological problems internally. And it makes people very sick because this is a 24/7 exposure. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you because everybody out there is looking at me like, we're dead. I'm not saying this to scare you. I am saying this to activate you, to educate you, to go talk to your boards, bring this information to your boards, and don't let them ramrod you. Do not just take it. Like what I dealt with last night. Don't just tolerate that. Any representative that talks to you like that needs to be fired. Who are they working for? You. You got to remember, you need to remember that. They're working for you. How dare they talk to you and treat you like that? Now, I couldn't say what I wanted to say because I was on camera. I had a TV camera right here. But I wanted to. And believe me, if they were my representative, I would have said it. I would have said, how dare you talk to me like that? You realize you're sitting in my seat, don't you? You realize who you're working for. And you better be careful treating your constituents that way because then you can be recalled and fired. But I was just having this conversation, it makes me laugh, with Jeff of North Dakota Nice.
Oh, yeah.
You're all so nice here. I don't know that you have it in you to recall anybody. Oh, you should stiffen your spine and get your you-know-what on. Because what is happening here is no joke. They are putting you and your communities, your farmland, your food source, and your health, your family's health at great risk of harm. And they're not listening. And when I'm telling you about these human and environmental impacts, I want to play a video for you. I'm talking about noise, right? It's not just audible noise. Audible noise is what we hear. And that's unwanted sound. Okay, that also can be a danger above a certain decibel level for a certain amount of time because it will cause hearing loss. But then there's something called tonal noise. Tonal noise is what my colleagues and I are extremely concerned about because there are whole communities right now that are getting very sick from this exposure to it. It's noise that you cannot hear, but that your body feels. It's vibration. It's called infrasound. Okay, and it creates a lot of inflammation. It causes a fight or flight mode in your brain and causes cortisol levels to spike. So it creates very serious issues. And you don't even know it, but it's happening. And when you can't ever get away from it, it's 24/7. It's not like in the workplace. In the workplace, OSHA regulates health and safety. And so all permissible exposure levels, whether it's noise, whether it's a certain exposure to a chemical, asbestos levels, whatever it is all based on an 8-hour time-weighted average. All right, and they've done those studies. You can't be exposed to anything beyond this over 8 hours, or we know it will create harm. Well, who's testing 24/7 exposure to the community? There are no studies on any of this. What we have, because they haven't been around long enough for us to do the RCT, the gold standard studies, right? The randomized controlled trial studies. They just haven't been around long enough. We had one in Michigan that's been up and running for 1 year, and the citizens in Dowagiac are all getting so sick that they just filed a class action lawsuit against the corporation that built that data center. That's serious. That's what I've been screaming about. What I've been warning you about is coming is now happening. It's called an observational study. We're watching it in real time, and it is reliable data. Okay, and it's going to turn into, with enough time, a randomized controlled trial, an RCT trial, but we just haven't had enough time to do that type of a study. So all we can rely on right now is that objective data, that the observational studies. So my colleague, Kristen Megan Kelly, who some of you here know and met several years ago when we were here, she did a video for Jeff Hoverson and for all of you. So I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna turn on the computer or the TV here, and I'm gonna let her talk about tonal noise because she wanted to just give Jeff a little endorsement, and she wanted to explain to you all why we feel tonal noise is the most critically important thing that people need to look at. And it's the one thing that all these developers are ignoring, all the data centers are ignoring, because nobody knows about it, right? So let me turn this on, just give me a minute to pull this up, and then you guys can listen to Kristen. They lost the remote control here, so we have to like try to play with it. I got it before.
At least it's still got a button.
Yeah, some TVs don't.
I hate that. Why spend money on a new TV that doesn't have buttons?
Well, they said somebody walked off with the remote, but yeah.
So, are they gonna give you a discount since this is part of your presentation?
Okay, here we go.
Hey friends from North Dakota, I'm making this quick short video. I have to head to an event and I'm sorry I couldn't be there to support you, Rep Hoverson. You guys need to re-elect Rep Hoverson in your 3rd district. He's been a true champion for health freedom and upholding his oath against hip pieces, which that's when you know you're doing something right.
Oops.
When the mainstream
I don't have my glasses
tries
on.
to say that you're doing something wrong because it goes against an unpopular elective mindset of shut up and color. So thank you for standing up for the people, not only in your district, but the people across the state and truly the country. Because since Tammy and I were there helping you guys fight the mandates, we've networked and create friendships and have a sense of family with many of you that are there. So hello to you all. As you know, my work wife and colleague, Tammy Clark, is there with you. I couldn't come with her because of the scheduling conflicts, but I think we're coming back in July. But I wanted to give you a little insight to get ahead of things before they come back. And that is right now, no matter where you're at in the state, look to update your noise ordinances to reflect tonal noise, also known as infrasound. Just like light is a spectrum, noise is a spectrum. And when you're talking about audible noise that's measured in decibels A, dBA, for a sense of conversation, when I say dB, I'm talking about decibels. dBA is audible noise. It's above 5,000 hertz and higher, and a dog whistle is way higher. That's why you usually cannot hear them. But audible hazardous noise is measured in dBA. Now, hazardous tonal noise is measured in something called dBC as in Charlie and dBZ as in Zulu, and it is measured using something called an octave band analysis. So you can't really find what you're not looking for, and when you're testing for different types of sound, you have total with the T sound, looking at the dBA, dBC, and dBZ, a total kind of capture of all the hazards, because you can have hazardous noise and tonal noise. And I'm going to dive into tonal noise very, very briefly so that you can begin to defend yourself, your property, and your resources with this information. But I just want to use the comparison of if you suspected, you tore a ligament or a tendon in your knee. If your doctor tried to say have an x-ray to check for a tendon or a ligament, you know that has to be done through an MRI. And that's how I feel when I hear developers, or yesterday at a commissioner's meeting talking about a sound study in dBA. Yeah, you have to use dBC. And an example would be trying to say how bright the sun is when you have sunglasses on. But take those sunglasses off and you're going to sneeze or you're going to squint. You're unfiltering the tonal noise when you're measuring with octave band analysis. See, tonal noise is created through the vibration of energy, the cooling fans, the HVAC systems, and all the components inside of a hyperscale AI data center. And that electromagnetic frequency and extremely low frequency creates that tonal noise or infrared sound. And what it can do to the human body is keep it in constant flight or flight mode. That's physically and mentally. So it can elevate your cortisol levels, which can cause an increased heart rate, tachycardia for both the expectant mother and the fetus, and an average person. If you have a pacemaker, if you have a pre-existing condition, chronically ill, POTS, you already have tachycardia, or an anxiety disorder. If you don't, you could develop one from this elevated cortisol and the tachycardia. Also, children who still have developing brains, that frontal lobe brain development, the decision making, it is not fully developed until you're in your early 20s. And what this is doing is disrupting childhood brain development because they cannot concentrate as well. The reading comprehension is down. The irritability, the behavioral shifts, because they're just so stressed out that even though they're not hearing it, it's like a form of, we use direct energy weapons that people can't see but they can feel. We did it in Venezuela recently. Tonal noise has been used as a form of a military torture technique. And let me tell you, the studies associated with tonal noise is all rooted in, at most, an 8-hour exposure due to the average work shift, a time-weighted average work shift of 8 hours. Now we're taking these industrial hazards, putting them into residential communities or near schools or other businesses, which creates a bigger cumulative impact analysis. Where's the data on the 24/7 exposure? Because you have agencies like OSHA and EPA who've been captured, but are designed to protect you in the workplace. However, who's there to protect you in the community? These are questions that you need to ask at your local township and county meetings, and even at the state level. Reach out to representatives that are willing to fight for you and have these conversations and hold committee hearings. Tonal noise can also lower the milk production in both expectant mothers who need to build up that colostrum, mothers who are already have their child is born and they are breastfeeding. It can lower their milk demand. If you have a dairy farm, it can lower their milk production, disrupt their mating cycle. Equestrian farms, it can cause self-harm. Horses are one of the most skittish and sensitive animals to changes in frequencies and sound and environments and even weather. So if you're somebody that has show horses or whatever reason you just love horses and have a horse farm, this can really change the behavior of your animals. This is unacceptable that we don't have protections for those of us impacted in the community. We're kind of SOL because our health departments, we learned during COVID, don't really know about industrial hygiene, even though we fall under public health, under total worker health. So these are things that I'll be talking about when I come back to North Dakota, but I'm just giving you this little teaser so that you can start to update your noise ordinances to reflect tonal noise. Heck, you can even ask AI to explain it to you. It'll rat itself out. But we need people out there that are willing to be comfortable having these uncomfortable conversations, because it's us. We are David, they are Goliath. We're going against billion-dollar corporations. I guarantee you, Tammy and I are on another list somewhere. We're in someone's binder, and we don't work for China, Kevin O'Leary. We work for we the people, and we only answer to God. We have ethics in our profession, and Rep Hoverson has ethics in his profession, and it's exactly why you guys need to donate, support, get out and vote to ensure that he's reelected in North Dakota's 3rd district. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Kristen. That's my girl. All righty.
Any questions?
Are there any questions about tonal noise? Because before I talk about other issues, I can answer questions about tonal noise. That has been our biggest concern from a health perspective, I would say. Yeah, I figured I'd get some for that one. Okay, is this going to distract you all? Oh, I did. Never mind. Got it. Okay, I saw your hand first, so go ahead.
Are there consultants or the entities that can assess for that and analyze and get reports? And I'm wondering,
Yes.
maybe you've already done that and kind of the costs involved in that.
Yes, so that, his question was, are there experts who do that? Yes, there are. They're called industrial hygienists. Well, they fall in the world of industrial hygiene, but there's a very specialized field, and they're basically sound engineers or acoustical engineers. And it really cracked me up because when I was at the county commission meeting in Oliver County yesterday, that's one of the things I brought up to the commissioners, and the representative from, I don't remember the data center company name, but it doesn't matter. That attorney said, we're already doing our ambient sound study. And I just had like, on what? On the sound of the dozers moving dirt? You can't do a sound study on something that doesn't exist. So, that tells me they're feeding you a line of BS and they're gaslighting you. And they're trying to use a clever game of wordsmithing to just, sneak one by you. So this is why we're talking to you and trying to educate you. So you can't really test something that doesn't exist. So what you need to do is put in your noise ordinances. You need to require any company that comes in that's going to be running a lot of fans, cooling systems, anything that's going to create a lot of vibration that will create that tonal noise. You need to be requiring them to be monitoring for noise 24/7, not 27 hours. That's what I read in the proposed noise ordinance for the county yesterday. We're going to monitor for a minimum of 27 hours. I'm like, where'd you get that number? You just pull that one out of a hat? There's nothing with 27 hours of noise monitoring anywhere. It needs to be constant monitoring. They need to be monitoring just like what we do already in existing industrial and commercial facilities. If they have systems that create vibration, like large HVAC systems, cooling systems, things like that, they're creating vibration. That means they are creating tonal noise. In our workplaces, we have to monitor, and it's called a sound meter. I have some of my guys in the construction industry, I have them wearing sound meters if they're working in the shop or the facility, a metal shop, whatever. I have them actually wearing sound meters on them, monitoring all day. If it goes above 85 decibels, we have to take action and I have to put them in hearing protection. So it should be in your noise ordinances, you should be requiring monitoring for sound, including sound in the dBA decibel range, audible, the dBc Charlie range, and the dBz Zulu range. Those two are tonal noise. Okay, so they need to be monitoring for that 24/7. And then when they go above thresholds, then we need to require them to put action in place. They should have preventive systems in place. And there are preventive things you can do. Different materials like tonal noise, that kind of frequency will go right through concrete and it will bounce off of buildings, and it can be exacerbated by wind. It can attenuate it for miles. So you could live miles away and you could still be very affected by the frequency. Everything is just energy, vibration, and frequency, right? I just had an interview today with somebody who called in, we were talking about that. But that is a real thing and it affects us biologically, internally, very much. So we, in our noise ordinances, need to require 24/7 monitoring for both audible and tonal noise. And then we need to have reporting requirements. They need to report back to the county, just like they do in any other facility, in our industrial facilities. They, diesel air emissions, they're not allowed to just discharge their emissions at any time. They can't all do it at the same time because we have something called PM 2.5s, which means it's a particulate matter that is smaller than 2.5 microns. And this is what comes out of industrial discharge. We can't allow all of the industrial facilities in our county to be releasing their discharge at the same time because that would put the community, the breathing air, at risk. And these PM 2.5s, they are things like dioxins, and they're very tiny. It gets into the deep lung tissue and can cause cancer. So this is why we have these types of controls in place. They've existed for years. It's just we've never applied it to like an industrial hyperscale data center because it's a new thing we're dealing with. So I hope that answered your question. I'm trying to explain it to people. It's very technical, but I'm trying to explain it to people in a way that's simple, that you can do if you sit on a board to update your ordinances to require. And I'll tell you what, if you put some of these things in place that you will not approve any facility that uses any water, you are not allowed to access our water, not one drop. And that is not an unreasonable ask because there are systems that exist where they do not use water, so make them use them. Do you know why they don't want to use those systems? One guess, one word. money. They don't want to use alternative cooling systems because they are more expensive to design up front and they're more expensive to maintain. Well, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. You're not going to come in here and cause harm to my community and suck my aquifer dry and make my wells go dry, change the chemistry of my water, just because you don't want to spend a little more money. You're a billion-dollar corporation, right? So put some of those things in place, some of those requirements in place. The noise ordinance, the requirement for alternative cooling systems. And by the way, if you're in here and you sit on a board, do not be fooled by the term closed loop. Do not let them tell you, oh, we don't use water, we use a closed loop system. I have been so frustrated with the lies, intentional lies, coming from these companies because there's really no such thing as a closed loop system when water is involved at all. So you have to ask them, okay, what type of closed loop system are we talking about here? Because unless I'm hearing like direct to chip or immersion cooling, I'm not liking what I'm hearing, closed loop. Because that tells me you're trying to snow me with something. So if it's a closed loop system, like a glycol cooled system, a glycol solution is 50% water. So they might not use 100% water, but they're using 50% water. You need to tell them in the requirements, you cannot access our municipal water supply or our aquifers, our wells, our rivers, our lakes at all. You have to use something that is completely non-water cooled. Then do not let them fool you when they say, that's okay, we're using air cooling systems. Okay, air cooling systems are great if the air is cool. And they're great if you have a small scale facility. But they will not work. Like when I was out in Kansas and it was 100 degrees, and they were telling them that they were gonna use oh, don't worry, we're using air chilled systems. I'm like, it's almost 100 degrees here, the air's hot. Right? And the size. They can only use that with a small facility, not a hyperscale facility. So you need to get these checklists in place for health reasons and understand that. And believe me, if you put those things in place, plus you put a decommissioning plan in place, this is a very important one too. If you put all these things in place, plus you require them to give you X amount of dollars, whatever percentage of the project up front. In fact, what you should do is get an estimate from a third party, give them the prints, give them the plans, and say, what would it cost to tear this building down, completely remediate it, and turn the soil back into workable agricultural land like it was in its original condition. Get an estimate for that. What's it going to cost? Then make that company give you that amount of money in escrow up front because they will be abandoning these campuses. And then the county or the city is going to be left holding the bag. And trust me, you all ain't going to have enough money to decommission that huge facility, that campus. Okay, so, and we know that's coming because Google executives have already said they'll be abandoning these campuses shortly because the technology that's coming at us so fast, it will be cheaper for them to abandon it and to use the other technology, the more advanced technology, than to maintain this campus. So they're going to walk away from it. And then what, right? So if you put those things in place as a checklist, trust me, I've talked with these executives, they're not going to build here. They're going to go somewhere else where they can prey on someone else who's not as educated and informed and they have weak zoning laws. So just keep that in mind. Okay, no, I saw you had a question, yes.
I was just curious what you know about qualified immunity. That's where basically the law enforcement can decide they don't see the mayor's son selling drugs, or that they won't take a rape complaint from a woman who's been abused or assaulted, or any other butt ugly thing. And basically in plain English, how it pertains here is the fact that they can basically ignore any noise ordinance. If that sheriff has a non-disclosure agreement, we're back to square one anyway.
Well, they cannot ignore ordinances. And there's nobody that can ignore an ordinance. Now, I'm not saying what she's saying, they look the other way. Well, what I've seen here in North Dakota, you got a lot of corruption going on here and a lot of people looking the other way. A lot. I'm shocked actually at how much of it is happening. But that's up to you guys. You guys got to get involved and stop that. I mean, it's just being allowed to go on. Why? My question is why? Why are you all allowing them to get away with this stuff? You know, I mean, so you people got to get real kind of, I'm just saying, I'm going to leave it at that. Yes.
So if I go back to my township board and explain what you just said, where do we find the levels that would be acceptable for like the tunnel noise and the other audible noises?
That's where you would want to work with an acoustical engineer, an industrial hygienist, somebody who does that testing. And so that leads to a good question. He's saying, where would I find somebody, or the levels? How would I know? All right, so there are levels that are established through OSHA. What is the permissible exposure level? It's called a PEL. And they have permissible exposure levels for audible noise, tonal noise, but then you gotta dive into, like, don't just go like Google OSHA's allowances, because it depends on time. That's for an 8-hour time weighted average. Now there are charts and graphs and things like that that they work with, and these are sound engineers that they work with to determine, okay, well, what if we have a 24/7 exposure, right? How would we know? So that's why you need to work with a professional, hire them to work with you to set those parameters. And the other thing is, I can't give you like a one-size-fits-all answer to some of these questions. Like the other one I get is, okay, what is an acceptable setback? Well, I can't tell you that because I don't know the size of the facility. I don't know the design. Are they using truly like dielectric immersion cooling so they don't have many fans? They're not creating a lot of noise and vibration, or are they? You know, it all depends on what the hazard is, then the exposure is being created by that particular system and that particular design. So don't listen to anybody who gives you a one-size-fits-all answer unless everything is the same design, the same size, the same materials. But here's the other thing. It is very, very influenced by other things like weather, topography. Like when we were out in Kansas, it is just flat. You can just see for miles the transmission lines. And it is so windy, so windy. It's like, I'm like, gosh, you guys are like living in a tornado every day. And so that wind will attenuate that sound for miles. It will carry it for miles. And because their land is flat, they've got a lot of clay, that hard condition will also exacerbate it. So, but then we're in Virginia, like in the Shenandoah Valley, and mountains and valleys and all, it's very different there. It's all shale. So I don't listen to anybody who tells you it's one size fits all. You got to say, this is our design, this is what we're looking at. And then after it's built, you've got to be doing the monitoring and proactively during the pre-construction phase. They can anticipate what, you know, during the planning and the construction phase, they can anticipate what the materials and what the expected load might be. And they can build in engineering controls at that point, right? Different materials around it, but then you got to test. So anytime we build in or we implement engineering controls, we have to go back and we have to test and we have to ensure the design, the confidence in those controls. So there's a lot to it. Yes.
I was just curious about your discussion about how that noise had been used as a form of torture in an environment. Could you elaborate a good deal more on that? Because I know we've got our noise ordinances in place, but it's, like I said, they tend to ignore at will. But
Yeah.
I am more curious about that stuff being used as a form of torture, what period of time, what kind of damage it caused to people, that sort of thing.
Well, I don't have all the specifics on that, but I do know that the military has used sound, both audible and tonal, as a torture technique in several different wars. And it will drive a person crazy. They don't let them sleep. It will cause sleeplessness, sleep deprivation, all of that kind of thing, which makes you crazy, irritable, anxious, will make you want to commit suicide, all of those things. So, did you have your hand up, or were you trying to talk to me because of the
I
camera?
was just gonna go back to abandon the campus. So what happens to the easements then?
That is a very good question. And let me tell you, they don't care about that right now up front. And so you've got to be really careful right now. I'm very concerned because the attorneys that I have seen, and I've worked with many of them, they don't understand what's coming, and they don't understand what they're setting themselves up for. They think they are promising us millions and millions of dollars, and we're going to get it every year, and it's never going to end. And I'm like, have you talked to the farmers that have been having the same promises by solar and wind, and now they're not getting it? And the company's gone bankrupt 2 years later, and now the farmer's left with no check, or the company sold to another company they didn't have to continue those payments, and now the farmer is left with no money coming in. You know, if something sounds too good to be true, guys, it is. It's just the way it is. We're all smart people. We know that from life experience. So then the problem is the farmer is left with solar farms that they can't reconvert because they don't have the money to deconstruct and decommission, and their soil has been contaminated. You know, and some of these are forever chemicals. With the wind turbines and the solar panels, when there's a problem, like we had hail damage up in Michigan, Indiana, all those forever chemicals are leached into the soil. You can't grow crops on that again. So you got to think about this. Yeah. Yes.
How many PFAS do these things tend to set loose? And why can't we just direct them in the direction of a toxic waste dump? Because in Michigan, you're supposed to have that old copper mine that was severely contaminated, and it seems like a good idea to send them out that way.
Well, there are toxic dumps that are rated. They have to be rated and certified by the EPA to accept any chemicals. So that's why we don't just dump them anywhere. Yeah.
No, I meant the data center. Put the data center on that dump.
The data centers should go in places like Superfund sites, wastelands, toxic dumps. They should go in places like brownfields, abandoned industrial zones, and then it should be on the company to remediate. It's a great reuse of abandoned area where people aren't living there, animals aren't there. If we're going to put data centers somewhere, they should be, and that's why I said the siting is the #1 most important thing, and we do have areas where we can place them. But for starters, we got to just all understand, hyperscale data centers are completely unnecessary. So let's just start there. All right, I saw him, yes.
Can you talk more about the return on investment? Like, what are they promising? Are they getting government subsidies to start? Are they getting tax breaks on the land?
Yes, so the ROI comes up front right now because they have tax incentives that extend, I believe, don't quote me on this because I gotta look it up, I believe through July of this year. Excuse me, and that's why I've been telling people, this whole green energy thing is not gonna last because there's not money in it anymore. It's not coming from the Trump administration, and what was there previously is about to run out. And so they're pushing this very quickly because if they can get this, they can get those permits approved and they can get this done by, I think, the end of July, then they get that tax money and that ROI up front. They're also really selling to their investors. So they're getting money from their investors. They're pouring, what I call it is a artificially propped up bubble that is about to burst. And Wall Street is driving it. Tax incentives are behind it. But they're not going to keep, so what happens is these builders, right, the companies that are building them are going to turn them over, they're going to really, they get them site ready and then they sell it to like a Google or a Oracle or a Meta. Then they come in with their facilities, get their facilities up and running, but they don't care. They don't care about all the negotiations with your board. They take over, they're only going to be there for a very short time, and then they're just going to abandon because they're going to have better technologies. That's where we have problems. We have developers and we have everything else. Yes?
Have some of these data centers, have they abandoned some already?
Not yet.
Not yet?
They're, no, we have had the hyperscale data centers, we've had up and running for a very short amount of time, with just in a few years. They have created very serious health and environmental problems though, that are now, we're seeing communities having to be vacated, wells completely drying up, utility rates going up from $200 to $800, and light pollution, families having to sleep in the basement due to the noise pollution and the light pollution. And we see it now, but the technology has not been released yet. I mean, it's getting there. They're working on it. They're all racing towards it. So, yes.
Do you have data available to some of the smaller, I could take this and go to our small county commissioners, but I won't remember half of what you said. Do you have the data we can download and show them this is what we need to have in place?
My colleague, Kristen, who you just saw, her and I, we are working together on putting together like a resource guide for county commissions, boards, basically for any board or legislative body, a checklist of things. We're not going to go, it would take me forever to explain everything I've just told all of you in a paper. Or I'd have to write a book, and I do not have time to write a book. But we're just gonna put together a resource guide, like a checklist of things that you should require, like real estate requirements, okay? This is what we require if you're gonna come in here, or what I like even better, you just say no data centers allowed in this county because we don't have an appropriate location where you can build that's not gonna cause harm to the community or the environment. More and more communities are starting to do that, and some legislative bodies as well. So, all right, anybody else? Yes.
Can we kind of consider these as a public utility since they're selling them to other purchasers?
That's the problem right now that we're having. The public utilities are very involved in them, and I was just having a conversation today, like, are these utility energy companies going to just start buying up or assuming the utility companies? And how are we gonna look at this moving forward down the road? It's all just, that hasn't been determined. Nobody, I think that's gonna end up having to be a court decision. Because right now it's like half private, this is all about money, private industry, but it's also being done and run by public utilities. And that's why they're partnering with public utilities, because they can exercise eminent domain through a public utility, whereas you can't exercise eminent domain for private reasons. So they have been working together, energy companies, they partner with these utility companies, and who's the bad guy? The utility company, because they're public. So I don't know how that's gonna play out. This is gonna get real interesting. Yes.
I remember a big fight about how nobody wanted to give the kids in school free lunches, and I understand a millionaire should have to pay their kids' way and all the whole 9 yards. But from what I understand, this is like a massive bubble, like like the .com bubble to turn in millennium, the housing bubble in 08 and 09, and just something that's seriously bad. They say that they're not using our funds, and then they're using our funds, and it looks like when the stock market correction hits, it could make the 1930s look real good. Any chance somebody has done any kind of research on the financial end of this?
Well, there hasn't been any research that's been published, but people are doing it right now. People are actively looking into all that. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Well-deserved applause, and I know that she'll be willing to stick around probably, but she has a curfew because we got to get her to the airport. We're leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning to get her on the plane back to Florida. So I know that her and Kristen are praying for us. Would you please pray for her too? And thank you for coming. God bless you all.
Yes.
Can you just tell us your name and who you are?
Tammy Clark.